Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline at Pixie Dust PhD, and I have some really exciting news to share. My partner and I have been loosely planning a trip to Paris, France since about 2019, but it's been delayed for various reasons. I'm happy to tell you today that we are finally going in the year 2022. By the time this video is uploaded, actually we probably will either be there or will have just shortly returned. We're going to do a bunch of nights in Paris proper. We may do a day trip. We're still in the planning phase at the moment, but there will be a couple of nights and a couple of days over at Disneyland Paris. Fairly similar to my planning for Disneyland Resort out in Anaheim, California, I figured I'd be able to plan a Disneyland Paris trip relatively easily. I've run into quite a few frustrations though, even more than Disneyland Resort out in Anaheim, so I'm going to share those with you today. It's definitely a whole other ballpark out there. I've got myself a spritz to try to keep the mood light and fun instead of too frustrating, so come along with me, see if you can spot the spritz continuity errors, and watch as my Asian glow flushes over time. Stay tuned! Starting with the briefest and most basics of overviews for Disneyland Paris. Much like Disneyland Resort in Anaheim and Walt Disney World, Disneyland Paris does have its own app that you'll want to download onto your mobile phone, and they do have their own hotels. Disneyland Paris is 2 theme parks and then Disney Village, so this is fairly similar to Disneyland Resort that also has 2 theme parks and Downtown Disney. Disneyland Paris has less on-site hotel resort options than Walt Disney World, but more than Disneyland Resort in California. And similar to both parks stateside, there are a ton of off-site hotel options too. Disneyland Paris off-site hotels are probably more similar to those of Walt Disney World than Disneyland Resort in California, in that the on-property hotels at Disneyland Paris are by far closer to the theme parks than the off-property ones. This is what you may be used to if you're going to Walt Disney World. In contrast to Disneyland, there are some off-property hotels that are incredibly close to the theme parks. That being said, I do think a bunch of the Disneyland Paris off-property hotel options are technically walkable, though it would be a bit of a long haul. And similar to Walt Disney World, most of the off-property hotels that are nearest to Disneyland Paris do offer some form of shuttle. Staying off-site at Disneyland Paris seems totally doable to me if you want to save some money. However, we decided pretty early on that we did want to stay on property. This is our first time out to Paris, and it might be our last ever, or at least for a really long time. And even if we do return, there's no guarantee that we'll go back out to Disneyland Paris, so this may be our only time to Disneyland Paris, in which case I want to stay on property. For booking hotels, you can of course do it directly through Disneyland Paris, or there are a lot of third-party options you can use. For example, I saw a lot of people saying that they use the company attraction tickets. It seems fairly reputable to me, but I did also find a bunch of complaints online that if you booked through a third-party vendor, that you were not able to link your tickets in the Disneyland Paris app on your phone. I can't say with 100% certainty how much truth there is to this difficulty. I'm sure that the folks complaining about this online are not lying, they have no reason to, but I also don't know how many people this is affecting in terms of percentage of people booking through third-party companies and who's not able to link their tickets through the app. But my personal risk tolerance overall is pretty low, and that is especially true if I'm traveling abroad. Even though it did look like we could save a small amount of money using a third-party vendor, we just decided to book directly with Disneyland Paris. In doing this, Disneyland Paris has packages available with your hotel and theme park tickets combined. When booking this, if you don't want to change anything about that package, is actually very straightforward. On the Disneyland Paris website, you tell them what dates you want to stay, you select a room from one of the various hotels that meets your needs and your budget, and this gets bundled with a park hopper ticket that is good from arrival day through departure day. So for example, if you're doing a 2-night stay, you'll get a 3-day park hopper ticket. If you're good with that setup, then again, booking through Disneyland Paris is extremely simple. That being said, at least on the United States version of the website, there is no adjusting this. You cannot change the ticket length. I did also briefly contact 2 US-based travel agents to inquire about this. They both said that they could book the package for me and it would cost me no extra money, as per usual with Disney travel agents, but they too were not able to adjust the ticket length. I did find this pretty annoying, not gonna lie. You can buy tickets only directly through Disneyland Paris or through third-party websites. Then you can also book a hotel only on a third-party website like Expedia or similar. To the best of my knowledge, at least on the US version of the website, you cannot do a hotel-only booking directly through the Disneyland Paris website. You can apparently call Disneyland Paris to do a hotel-only booking. That is what the fine print on the website implies. This will, however, incur international calling fees, and you'll have to do it on Paris time, etc. Honestly, I'm just kind of too lazy to deal with that, and I just find it shocking that you cannot adjust the package at all on the website. This was also a pretty big bummer for me because it makes booking a split stay directly through the Disneyland Paris website pretty much impossible. Ideally, I wanted to do one night at a less expensive hotel like Hotel Cheyenne. This would be our arrival night. So I probably wouldn't be going into the parks that day. Instead, we would either be coming from Paris or another day trip location, and I just want to have somewhere on property close by to sleep. Being that close would make transferring over to our next hotel in the morning very simple, and of course we'd get to experience 2 hotels instead of only 1. So again, ideally we would do 1 night at a hotel like Hotel Cheyenne, and then transfer for 2 nights to a more expensive hotel. The actual Disneyland hotel is down for refurbishment while we're there, so we've been looking at the Hotel New York Art of Marble. Then we would do theme parks for either 2 to 3 days, I hadn't fully decided, but do those 2 nights at Hotel New York. So I'd be 1 night at Hotel Cheyenne with no theme park tickets, and 2 nights at Hotel New York with either 2 to 3 days of theme park tickets. If I wanted to try to book this on the Disneyland Paris website, at least on the US side of the website, it's literally not possible to make that happen. Again, you can call them and make it happen, or you can cobble things together through third-party websites, but doing it directly through them, the packages are highly inflexible. Also worth noting if you're going to book directly on the Disneyland Paris website is that the conversion rate doesn't appear to be updated with any regularity. Consistently, when looking at the package we were interested in, either in euros or pounds, the conversion to US dollars was like $200 to $300 less than the actual price we were quoted on the US version of the website. This is absolute rubbish in my opinion. They update the price of the packages nearly every day, so you'd think that they could update the conversion rate too. It's one thing if things were off by like $10 or so, but we're talking hundreds of dollars. That's pretty meaningful. Ultimately, we ended up booking our hotel and ticket package in euros. Rather than go through the United States version of the Disneyland Paris website, we did the international European version. We of course put this on a credit card with no international fees, and when we went to pay, it went through just fine on the Disneyland Paris website even though my billing address was in the United States. Once I start posting blogs and trip recap videos, I'm sure I will let you know if this does cause any problems. But I did see quite a lot of folks online in various forums reporting that they were able to book in whatever country that was not necessarily their home country just for the better rate, and there weren't any issues upon check-in. Hopefully it all goes well for us. Also, if you didn't pick up on this last bit because I was pretty subtle about it, the package prices do update daily. On-site hotel prices at Disneyland Paris are quite dynamic. Ticket prices are like Walt Disney World where they have dated entry tickets. So going during higher times will cost you more per day than low season times. That's fine, and honestly the ticket price wasn't that bad. Hotel prices though at Walt Disney World typically don't really move that much. If you're looking at the same date for the same hotel at Walt Disney World and there is availability, it just kind of is the price that it is. This is absolutely not true for the Disneyland Paris hotels. Their hotel prices change a ton, much like any hotel in New York or even off-site at Walt Disney World. But just for illustrative purposes, it is possible for your on-site Disneyland Paris hotel and ticket package to change nearly 50% in the time that you may be tracking it. Because I'm a huge Disneyland Paris novice, I don't have a good sense of what is or is not a good price. Ultimately, my partner and I were waiting to book the hotel package until we knew we were actually going, so until we had booked our flights. But if you're going to book directly with Disneyland Paris and you have the ability to book early, chances seem good to me that you'll probably save money if you book earlier. And in the process of actually booking your package, there was a minor thing that ticked me off. They require that you choose a title, and they only let you pick from Miss, Mrs., or Mr. Those of you familiar with the channel know that my title is Doctor. I do in fact have a PhD. Frankly, I would rather just not pick a title if I'm not able to choose my actual title of Doctor, but again, it was mandatory. And on top of that, your mandatory title plus your first and last name can only be up to 26 characters. My first name alone is 10 characters. And I do also have a rather long last name. I basically just had to abbreviate my name, which felt pretty terrible. It seems like there's no good reason why this limitation should be in place, and like, who chose 26 characters? I genuinely hope this doesn't screw anything up when I go to check in, because the name I booked the package under does not match the name on my passport. And there's nothing I could have done about that. The character limitation was strict and it was very much in place. Next, in terms of your package, like Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World, at Disneyland Paris you do need theme park reservations at the moment. However, if you book a package directly through Disneyland Paris, this is sort of waived. I guess it's implied that they know you'll be there, so it's taken care of. But you don't have to pick a park or anything. I did eventually find this spelled out on the website, but it was quite obscured, and I wish that they would make that more clear during the booking process. Because I did waste quite a lot of time trying to figure out, like, how do I make my theme park reservations? Because definitely if you have non-dated tickets or if you have an annual pass, you have to do it. But just FYI, if any of you are booking a hotel and ticket package directly through Disneyland Paris anytime soon, I'm pretty certain, I'm like 98% certain that you don't need to worry about making theme park reservations. And at the theme park stateside, at least when I was booking my Disneyland Paris package, there still were restrictions on park hopping. Mainly, you couldn't park until 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. at Disneyland Resort or Walt Disney World Resort, respectively. I couldn't find any information about park hopping limitations for Disneyland Paris, so I ended up just asking a few friends who had been recently, and thankfully there are no restrictions. You can park hop whenever you want, which is awesome. But again, I wish that was just a little bit more clear. Finally, when you book a package through Disneyland Paris, you will receive email confirmation with everything you need. I was easily able to link my hotel reservation in the Disneyland app by using that confirmation number that showed up in my email, so that was great. But apparently your tickets don't actually show up in the app until 15 days before check-in. I don't know why this is, and I don't love that. Honestly, it makes me nervous. I feel like I paid for my tickets way in advance, so can you just load them into the app? I am just really nervous that the tech is gonna get screwed up somehow, and we're gonna have problems we have to deal with right before we're leaving. Additionally, we did pay in full at booking. You can pay in installments, and then I guess I would understand more why they would hold tickets until you fully paid off your package. But mine is fully paid off. I paid for the tickets. I would like to know that they exist and that there aren't any bugs. Admittedly, this is a minor thing, but nonetheless it's stressing me out. With that in mind, let's talk about the Disneyland Paris app for a bit. I am not the biggest proponent of My Disney Experience, which is the app for Walt Disney World. But goodness, having experienced Disneyland Resort out in California and now, to some extent, Disneyland Paris, My Disney Experience is looking better and better by the day. It's a really low bar for the tech here. My biggest frequent annoyance when using the app is that there is no Face ID, Touch ID, or phone passcode enabled to log into your Disney account on the Disneyland Paris app. You literally have to type your password in every time you need to log in. I fundamentally do not understand how this is possible in the year 2022. Next, there is no search on the home page of the Disneyland Paris app. There is a search bar, thankfully, but it is only on the map tab of the app. I don't understand why this is, and it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But thank you so much to my friend Jeff for pointing out that there is a search function on the map, just not on the homepage. I honestly don't know if I would have found it without him telling me that it did exist. Also, as I'm sure you're used to with Walt Disney World or Disneyland Resort, the app is just kind of glitchy, but for me, I find the Disneyland Paris app to be more glitchy than either My Disney Experience or Disneyland. It sometimes just doesn't work. And based on some chatter I've seen online, I don't think I'm alone in holding the opinion that the Disneyland Paris app in particular seems extra glitchy compared to the parks in the United States. Now, of course, in general, this is frustrating, but it is especially frustrating because you actually need the app to do quite a lot. For example, entertainment showtimes are not provided online, at least not on the United States Disneyland Paris website. It directs you to go to the app to find the showtimes. If the app isn't working when you have time to do some planning, well, that just puts a wrench in things. And the last thing I've noticed about the app for now, in the planning phase, not yet in the utilization phase of being in the parks, is a weird thing about dining. So your dining reservations do show up in the app, that's great, but they're not actually in chronological order. They may be in chronological order of when you booked them, but not chronological order of your actual dining dates and times. Again, this is minor, but I do find it quite strange. Speaking of dining, let's chat about that. Like Walt Disney World and Disneyland Resort, in theory, your advanced dining reservation opens up 60 days in advance. However, this in practice was absolutely not true. 62 to 64 days in advance of when I wanted to dine, I would find reservations opening up. But not for all restaurants. There isn't this unspoken rule where like, oh, it's actually 65 days or something. Some restaurants would open up a few days before that 60-day mark, but others, seemingly the more popular ones like Chez Remy, definitely did not. Maybe only high-demand restaurants are 60 days? It's really unclear to me. Also, I have no idea what time ADRs open up online. I literally couldn't find that information anywhere. I scoured the whole Disneyland Paris United States version of their website. I did a lot of Googling. I looked on forums. Everyone's answer was basically, oh, it's not Walt Disney World. It's not as competitive. You don't need to worry as much. Just log on 60 days in advance and it'll be fine. That's not reassuring to a person like me who likes rules and who also may only be going to Disneyland Paris once in my life, so I want to be sure to snag certain things. If you know what time Disneyland Paris ADRs open up, please leave a comment down below. Also, if you book your hotel and ticket package directly through Disneyland Paris, ADRs just like magically open up in advance. But again, I have no idea how far in advance. I asked a couple friends back in like June and they had trips planned for the fall and they could already book some of their dining then. But again, not all of it, not for every restaurant, but some of them. We ended up booking our hotel and ticket package just before that 60-day ADR mark. Magically, once we did book that package, a lot had opened up. We could suddenly book Chez Remy, the Marvel Hotel table service dinings were available, etc. I can't say with any certainty how far in advance you can book a package and then subsequently book your dining. But again, if you do think you're going to stay on site, you do want to book directly through Disneyland Paris, and you are able to do that early, it can only help you out when it comes to advanced dining reservations. And in planning for dining, I think it's a fairly commonly held notion that food at Disneyland Paris is not maybe the best. This seems to be especially true for quick service, so I wanted to be a little heavier on table service dining than we normally would be in order to make sure we're having at least one decently good meal a day. Table service dining is expensive though, that's true at all Disney parks, so to pick the experiences I think we would enjoy most, I of course wanted to look at the menus. There are no menus linked on the US version of the Disneyland Paris website, it tells you to go to the app. Interestingly, you can find menus on the UK version of the Disneyland Paris website, as well as the International Europe version on the Disneyland Paris website, which are in English. I didn't figure this out until it was too late and I had already gone through the whole app to look at all of the menus, but just FYI for you, if you want to look at menus on your actual computer, just go to the UK website. But seriously, I don't know why they couldn't just cross-link them on the US website. Then, once you do book an ADR, you are sent an email and it does show up in the app. However, I found it very strange that there's no sort of confirmation code or number associated with your reservation. I really hope this won't cause any issues. Dozens of times in the States, I've tried to check into a hotel or a conference or an appointment or a dining reservation, and they aren't able to find my registration or my reservation. Whenever I run into bumps in the roads like this, I always have a confirmation number that I just provide quickly, and then whomever's working is able to look up the confirmation number and smooth everything out. I guess Disneyland Paris does dining just by name and time, but what happens if there are multiple people with the same name? I've definitely experienced having my reservation given away to other people named Jacqueline, including walk-ups who happen to be named Jacqueline and just lie about having a reservation. Again, a confirmation number helps me confirm with the employee that I did actually book this and you guys kind of messed up. Disneyland Paris apparently has none of this sort of backup system when it comes to dining. Hopefully this won't be a problem, and there's probably like a 95% chance that everything will be fine. But this definitely is making me more anxious than I'd like to admit, and I just don't see any problem with having that redundancy built into the system. Honestly, when I got the email for my ADR and there was no confirmation number, I couldn't believe it. The last bit about planning that I'm finding pretty challenging is, at least in the time frame that I'm going, Disneyland Paris isn't posting park hours until 1 month in advance. Perhaps I've been lucky, but in the past when planning Walt Disney World trips, those park hours have been posted at least 2 months in advance. I really think it's helpful to have your park hours at least 60 days in advance, especially when you're talking about booking table service dining. While park hours are always subject to change, this way at least you have an approximation of opening and closing, you can guess about fireworks, show times, etc. I'm really hoping I'm not going to have to dramatically adjust dining times 30 days in advance because that's the first chance I have to find out about park hours at Disneyland Paris. And honestly, for in-demand restaurants like Chez Remy, I don't think I'll be able to adjust it, and I'm just going to be stuck with potentially missing a parade or something. And with park hours not being posted in advance, we're also a little bit left guessing about Extra Magic Hour. Traditionally, if you're staying on site at Disneyland Paris, you get 1 hour early entry into both theme parks. But since Avengers Campus is opening, that's getting a little complicated. At least through mid-August, there's only Extra Magic Hour at the theme park without Avengers Campus, and then instead of Extra Magic Hour, Avengers Campus is staying open 1.5 hours late, but I think that's happening for everybody, not only resort guests. Again, hours for when I'm traveling still aren't posted, so I can't really be sure what's happening with Extra Magic Hour yet. If this continues to be the case though, where there's only Extra Magic Hour at one of the parks, that's a really huge bummer for me. Extra Magic Hour was one of the primary reasons I wanted to stay on site, so we could do one morning in one theme park and one morning in the other theme park. Especially because the Walt Disney Studios Park has Crush's Coaster and Tower of Terror, and it would be really beneficial to be able to do one of those, or at least get in line for one of those during Extra Magic Hour before the general public is let into the theme parks. The Walt Disney Studios Park seems to not really have that many attractions to absorb crowds, so I am pretty nervous about wait times for those two rides. Maybe though everyone will be flocking to Avengers Campus and it won't be too bad, but it'd just be really nice to be able to do them in the morning and get them done. I just wish I knew more about the park hours and such in advance so I could plan out our time effectively. 30 days is going to be a little bit of a crunch for me, and I know it's going to feel like I'm cramming it in the last minute instead of enjoying my planning at a leisurely pace. None of these individual complaints on their own are awful, but I think when you add it all up, it's just been really frustrating for me. Planning a Walt Disney World trip is one of my favorite parts of the trip overall. Of course, I love being on vacation, but the planning I genuinely find really fun and I enjoy doing it. I was hoping that would be the case with Disneyland Paris too, but every time I've set aside a chunk of time to really plan out the Disneyland Paris portion of our trip, I run into one of these instances where things just aren't going as smoothly as they could, and seemingly for no real reason most of the time. It seems apparent to me that they definitely do not care about the US customer, and I get it, that's fine, we're foreigners, but I mean, so are the UK folks, and you know, they get menus posted to their website at least. Overall, the user experience has really not been great for me, and it's just a bummer because the planning part, again, is something I usually enjoy, and having this be a chore is also making me not super excited, honestly, for Disneyland Paris in general. I hope once we're there it's super magical, but for now, I'm feeling pretty down on things. If you've got any tips, tricks, and planning advice for Disneyland Paris, please leave it in the comments down below. Similar to planning for Disneyland Resort out in California, I feel like there's a little bit of a dearth of planning specific information for Disneyland Paris. I found plenty of reviews and a lot of blogs, but not a lot of that tips, tricks, advice stuff that I really need. And if you're hoping to get to Disneyland Paris sometime soon, I hope that me sharing some of these frustrations as a US-based customer will help your planning experience be a little smoother. If you can anticipate the bumps in the roads, hopefully they won't feel like a huge detour for you like they have for me. Of course, I am still looking forward to going, and I can't wait to share with you. May the rest of your day be magical, and we'll see you real soon at Pixie Dust PhD.